Hey guys, welcome. So glad you could practice today. We're going to focus mostly today on this area of the hips and the pelvis, which is just in general an area on our bodies that can tend towards both tightness and weakness, whether we sit too much or from activity, and then can be a little bit exacerbated if we're having to sit, lay down, rest probably even a little bit more, and the hips start to get a little bit tight, low back gets a little tight, just from maybe lack of movement as much. This can also be a great range of motion to work with if you've had surgery within the abdomen or pelvis, and as long as you're past that healing period and cleared for activity to help start to regain some of that range of motion. And so we'll work gently to start, build up a little bit, but as always, find your right place. Right? There's going to be always, I think, in yoga, this fine line between where there's sensation, right? We're creating a little bit more range of motion, opening things back up, but where there's pain, and we always back away from pain. And it's good to work maybe just right at that edge where you can feel it. There's good stretch, things are happening, right? But a place where your breath can still stay really steady, that's always a good indicator. And that your body feels comfortable, mostly in the pose without pain. If you have a couple blocks, those are great to have for class. If not, even just a pillow or two, just for the side lying position we're going to do. And then let's go ahead and start lying down on our backs. And go ahead and begin with your knees bent, your feet out a little bit wider, and just let your knees rest together. And this is constructive rest pose, and a nice way is to start to bring some space into your low back. And then go ahead, bring your hands down to your belly. Let your eyes close. And just take a moment to let your body settle in. Let your shoulders drop back. Let your back just root down, relax to your mat. And so you give yourself these first few moments to just shift from whatever you've been doing in your day to this time for you to breathe, to move your body, and sometimes even to find a little bit more steadiness in your mind. I really encourage you to make the practice what you need today, to take the pieces that feel really good, to let go of the rest, right? It's always here for you to come back to when you're ready to try different things. And see if you can start to take your breath just a little fuller. I always say full without force. So you're not pushing the breath. Sometimes with hands on belly, it can just be a nice little bit of feedback. Or once your breath gets a little bit fuller, you can feel that rise and fall of your belly with your breath. And just take a few more rounds like that. And just notice where your breath is at now. And so it can be such a great indicator of where is enough in our practice and where is too much. And those places where your breath starts to get shallow or fast. Listen to that. Back out a little bit, make adjustments in your body, give yourself more support. Make the practice work for you. These last few breaths here, I also invite you, if there's something in particular that you really like to get from your practice today, whether that's just a few moments to breathe or a little more range of motion, you can take a moment and set that as your intention. Great. And then walk your feet back in so that they're about hip width apart. And so if you could think about where your sitting bones are to line up with your heels, that we're moving in about that direction. Your feet can be a little bit further away or closer in, whatever feels right here. And then just feel where your pelvis is. So you think about this whole bowl of our hips. And it might feel like your lower back's a little bit further down towards the ground, or it might be a little bit more space underneath in your low back. So just notice. And then we're just going to take this little rocking action. So if you think about our pelvis as a bowl, that right now it's in neutral. And with your inhale, you're going to arch your back and tilt the bowl of your pelvis forward towards your legs. And then as you exhale with the strength of your belly, press down. So it feels like your lower back is pressing down into your mat. Then inhale, rock forward. And then exhale, rock back. Press your lower back down. And then just start to move nice and slow with that with your breath. Inhale, come forward. So you might feel that space up underneath your lower back, that natural curve of your low back. And then exhale, press down. And so just really simple action, but starts to lubricate around the hip joint. And get some range of motion there, some fluidity. Also really good just to bring awareness to that area of our bodies. That little pumping action, great for blood flow, great for lymphatic flow. Just start to get things moving. And take a few more like that. No hurry. I think bowl tilting forward and then tilting back. And this is an easy one to do if you're just maybe laying down and feeling like low back starting to get a little tight. You can lay on the ground and just take this simple range of motion to get some movement back through your spine. And then come back to neutral. From there, one at a time, draw your knees into your chest. Then we're going to take a little bit bigger movement into the legs. You're going to keep your right leg in, stretch your left leg up. So think about this like riding a bicycle. It's the same action. And now I start to get a little more into the movement of the hips. And so begin to lower your left leg down, reach your right leg up, draw your left knee in. Might take a little coordination at first. Right leg down, left leg up, right knee in. If you're in a different rights and lefts, that's fine. And just start to move up, down, and in. Your breath, your movement. Just find a pace and a range of motion that works well for you. And with your arms, you can either alternate bringing your knee in, just giving it that little extra squeeze. Sometimes I think that feels nice and supportive. You could also bring your arms out to the side, more like a T shape or a cactus shape. For me, that tends to ask for a little bit more engagement from the core. We'll just see what works best for you. Good, slow, steady movements. The thing I like about moving slower, well, a lot of things, but that I think it really helps us to feel where the range of motion is good, right, where it seems like more fluid, maybe where there's some little hiccups along the way, just so we start to become aware of it. Great. And then the next time you bring your right knee in, hug it in, and let your left leg come all the way down to your mat. But keep it active. You want to flex your foot so the leg muscles of the legs feel engaged. And then stretch your right leg up towards the ceiling and interlace your hands behind your leg. Right, so here's a great place if the leg's feeling really far away today, a block or a pillow or two under your head will lift you a little bit closer to your leg and sometimes just help you to get that range of motion. Right, I have a fair amount of flexibility, sometimes too much. So what might look like in my body might feel very different in yours. Okay, so just find the right place for you. If you have a belt or a strap, sometimes that around your leg can also be helpful there. And we're just going to take some bend and straighten with the knee here, get some pumping action go through the leg. Let's stay in here for your inhale, and then bend your knee, draw it in for your exhale. And inhale, bring your leg back to or towards straight. So it might come partway towards straight, it might come all the way, depending on range of motion. And exhale, bend. And press up, inhale. And as you press the back of your leg into your hands. And then exhale, bend, draw your thigh in towards your belly. Good. Press it up, inhale. Really press up through your heel. And then exhale, draw in. I'm going to take one more, stretch it up. Another great one for circulation and lymphatic flow. And then draw it in. This time, bring your knee all the way in. We're going to come twist over to your left. So this is another great place for a block or even a couple of blankets underneath your right knee, especially if it feels like the floor is just really far away today. Some days feels like that. And then you can bring your right arm out to the side. You can feel nice to keep your left hand to your right thigh, if that feels comfortable or grounding. And then just let your right shoulder drop back. And see if you can keep the shoulder anchored. That might mean backing out of your twist a little bit, and that's fine. And then lengthen your outer right hip away so it feels like you're rolling your right hip towards your left foot. And that's just going to give you, hopefully, a little more space in your side body. It may even start to get some stretch in this area, in this connective tissue and fascia that's up along the top of our hip and pelvis. And then just give yourself a few full breaths into that space along your right side body. And that might feel like you're bringing your breath a little bit more out into your ribs. Sometimes we think just of that space of lungs and belly, and that's fine. That's great full breath. Sometimes it's nice to feel like our breath moving side body and even into the back of the body. And with your next inhale, use a little bit of the strength of your belly. Bring your leg back to center. Bring your right knee in. Bring your left leg in. And we're just going to take a few more of those slow bicycle legs before we set up for the second side. And so reach your right leg up, left knee in, and then to start to find that slow riding the bicycle action with your legs again. Sometimes it takes a little coordination, right and left brain going, right knee in, leg up, leg forward, and just alternating each side. Right, and your extended leg as you bring it down, it might come further down towards your mat. It might just come a couple inches. Sometimes it just depends on how it feels for your low back or your belly. So play a little bit with it, explore what's the best range of motion for you. Is it leg a little bit higher or leg down a little bit lower? There's no right, there's no wrong. The practice is really individual to each of us. Okay, next time, left knee in, stay there, and lower your right leg all the way down to your mat. And then interlace your hands behind your thigh, straighten your leg. Just say move towards straight, right? Sometimes that might be here or leg a little straighter. And you can do the same if it helps to reach your leg, put some support behind your head. One of my favorite things to do to just give yourself a little more support in this pose. And then find a little bit of resistance here. So as you press your leg into your hands, right, draw back on hands to legs so that engagement feels like everything hugs together. And then keep that. Take a breath in. Exhale, bend your left knee, draw in towards your belly. And inhale, straighten it back up. And then exhale, bend. And just move with your breath. Right? It might be different from where my cues are. That's fine. Find your breath rhythm and your pace. And just don't forget about your right leg. Sometimes we're working the left so much, forget about the right leg. Just keep it engaged. Gonna take a couple more, slow and steady. And then the next time your left knee comes in, stay there. If you have the block or pillows, you might want to slide that out for your twist and bring your left knee over to your right. You could use that block and pillows underneath your left knee. And then left arm out to the side. I find sometimes with the support under the knee, it's easier for your shoulder to stay connected down to your mat. Maybe right hand to thigh. And then you can either look straight up at the ceiling or look out over your left arm. One might just feel better for your neck. And just let your left shoulder get heavy and drop back. And do that same, roll your outer left hip away. So it feels like it's rolling towards your right foot. And maybe that gives you just a little bit more space in that left side of your body or the top of your left hip. And just take a couple full breaths into that space. And a little strength of your belly. Use your inhale, come all the way back up to center. And then bring your hips to the center of your mat. Again, bend your knees. This time, see if you can walk your feet in just to whatever place feels comfortable. You may be able to reach down and touch your heels. Sometimes we have longer legs and shorter arms, so it's more proportion than flexibility, but they're just moving in that direction. Okay, with your hands down, turn your palms down. And just get heavy through the back of your head. Let your shoulders drop back. And press into your heels. Take a full breath out. And then just slowly inhale, lift your hips up. And that might be just an inch or two off your mat. That might be a little bit higher. Don't force it to start with. And then exhale, lower down. Well, don't ever force it, but especially when we're just getting into back bends. Inhale, float hips up. Find your height. Maybe listen, you'll hear that stopping point, feel it in your body. Exhale, lower down. Take 3 more like that. Inhale, float up. And as you exhale, lower down, think if you can do one vertebra at a time as you lower your back down. Good. Inhale, lift. And exhale, lower. Just trying to get that movement to match the full length of your breath. One more. Float up, inhale. And then just stay for an extra breath. Press into your heels. Lift your chest towards your chin. And stay heavy through the back of your head. And lower all the way down, exhale. And then from here, just going to roll onto your side. Let's go to your right side first. And have either your block or again, just a couple of pillows. And so that you can rest your head on the block or a couple of pillows. And if it feels better to bring it all the way down to your mat, then you're welcome to do that. Right, so you're here with knees bent, legs stacked, and just flex your feet so your legs feel engaged. Okay, this is like a clamshell action. We're going to do really good for that strength in the outer hip. This is a place a lot of us tend to get tight, but it's also a lot of times come from weakness in the outer hip, so good to strengthen as well. Okay, take a breath out. Keep the inner edges of your feet touching, and then inhale, lift your left knee up a few inches. And exhale, close it back together. Clamshell. Lift up, and it might just come a little bit. You might have a little bit more range of motion. And exhale, lower down. So what we're trying to avoid, lift up, is rocking all the way back on the hips. Keep your hips stacked, even if that means less, right, movement or range of motion. So we're just really isolating the muscles in the outer hip. Good. Take a couple more. I feel like this one, it doesn't take much to get that area to turn on and start to work. And then on your next inhale, bring your leg all the way up towards the ceiling. It might be straight, you might have a little bend in it again, that's fine. And here, right, your hips, your pelvis might rock back a little bit, that's okay too. Turn your left toes a little bit in towards center. So we're just getting this inner rotation of the hip. I'm gonna make some circles. Go slowly, again, just feeling that range of motion. That's when we move fast, we can miss those little places that need a little bit more attention. You can make them a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger. See what feels right for your body today. And then switch direction. And sometimes it's funny, one direction feels really smooth and fluid, and the other one feels a little bit creakier. And come back to center, bend your knee, and then bring your knees back together. And then we're going to come to the second side. I'm going to come this way so you guys can still see. You can roll over on the other side, or you can do the same if it's more helpful to see the screen that you're looking at. And so rest your head. Just bring your arms wherever they're comfortable. Bend your knees, and stack your legs, stack your feet together. So you can feel the inner edges of your feet touching. Okay, take a breath out. And then inhale, float your right leg up a few inches. Exhale, close them back together. Feel this in the outer hip there. Inhale. Exhale. Sometimes simple is most effective. Let's keep going with your breath. Think of yoga sometimes as these crazy big, twisty, bendy, pretzel-y poses. And yes, there are some of those. I find sometimes that really the simpler we get, we can pay attention to exactly what's happening in our body and in our breath. And even often how our mind, our thoughts are reacting to the practice. Where are the places that feel good? Where are the places we feel maybe a little irritated even from practice? Next time, straighten your leg all the way up. Flex your foot. It might have a bend in it. Again, that's fine. Turn your toes in a little bit towards your head, and then make those big circles. Sometimes in yoga, we think, oh, it's always going to make me feel good. And I think it often does. But sometimes we stir up the stuff before we get there. We get into those places where the tissues are holding on. It's not as comfortable as it was yesterday. And so we just notice reaction, shift the opposite direction. And to just be okay with it. Notice that's what's coming up today and breathe with it. That to me is such a big part of our practice. The awareness of our mind and body and that connection together. Bend your knee, bring both knees back down. I can feel that in the outer hip. And then I'm gonna roll all the way to hands and knees from here. You can just set your blocks off to the side if you have that. And then just take a moment to stack your shoulders right over your wrists and your hips right over your knees. We're going to take some cat-cow here, and in some ways it's really similar to that pelvic rocking that we just did on the floor. And so if you move from your pelvis, you might feel some of that same action. So as you inhale, arch your back, look forward. And then as you exhale, round through your back, lengthen your tailbone back, and draw your chin towards your chest. We're just adding on also a little movement through the upper body. And inhale, arch your back, look forward. And then exhale, round. Stay strong through your hands to really press your hands down into the mat, especially through your fingertips. Inhale, come forward. So that there's a lot of support for your wrists and elbows and shoulders. And then exhale, round. Good, come back to center. So where it feels like that spine is at neutral, right? We're not arched, we're not rounded, we're right in the middle. And if up on hands isn't feeling great for your wrists, you can put a little bit of support under there, a blanket. You can also come to fists. Sometimes that's really supportive for the wrists. You're going to shift your weight off onto your left knee and then just make some big circles around with your right knee, right hip. Again, similar to what we did lying on our sides. I find too, sometimes we just change the plane where we're in, whether we're seated, standing, right, on all fours. Go ahead and switch directions, take it the other side. And that same range of motion might feel really different. And come back to center, both knees down. And then just for a moment, untuck your toes, sit back into child's pose, bring your arms back by your sides. Just let your hands, your wrists rest for a moment. Take a couple breaths. And then come forward again, shoulders over hands. I like to spread out wide through fingers like a fan, lots of support, and press down into your fingertips. Right, hands or fists if that feels better. Shift your weight to your right knee and then a couple big circles around left knee, left hip. And switch sides. And just notice, change, modify. Right? Any places where the range of motion, we start to get anything that feels really uncomfortable. And come back to center. And then just a couple more rounds of cat and cow. Especially if you're coming out of any sort of surgery and there's scar tissue that we're working with. Just notice where that starts to change the range of motion. Don't fight it, work with it. And come back to center. And then tuck your toes under if they're not already. I'm going to stretch back into downward facing dog. And stay strong through your hands. Your knees might have a bend in them. Just press your hands into your mat and stretch your hips up and back to lengthen through your spine. And just take nice small steps forward. Bring your feet towards your hands and or walk your hands back to your feet, whatever works better in your body today. Hands to your hips. Inhale, come all the way up. Exhale, bring your hands together at your heart. And then if you're not already, you can take a step forward up to the front of your mat. And either bring your feet together if that feels comfortable, or feet hip width apart. That often feels a little bit more stable in my body. With your next inhale, reach both arms up. And then exhale, right hand down your right side, reach your left arm up and over. And we'll move with breath a little bit here first. Inhale, reach arms up. And then exhale over to your left. Good. Side to side with your breath. Reach up, inhale to your right. And you can adjust where the arm is, where the shoulder is, if that range of motion isn't quite fitting where your body is today, right? Sometimes I like to do hand behind head, or even arm out to the side. So many variations we can find to make the practice fit us. And next time you come to your left, pause for a moment. Press down through your right foot. Reach up and over with your right hand. You might even let your right hip come out to the side a little. Feel that stretch along the top of hip and low back. Back up to center, inhale. And then to your right, exhale. Hand down your leg. Reach your top arm up and over. And then just really press down into your left foot. You can let your left hip sway out to the side. And then reach out through your left fingertips. Back up to center, inhale. Both hands to your heart, exhale. Take a breath. You're going to take a big step wide with your right foot, so step back so that you're facing towards the long end of your mat. And take your feet as wide as it feels comfortable. You might start to get a little stretch in the inner leg, but no pain. Okay, from here, turn your left toes forward and slide your right heel back an inch or two. And then bend your front knee, warrior two. And so your knee can be back from your ankle or over your ankle. But if it feels like it's coming forward, take a little bit longer stance, just so we're not putting strain on the knee joint. And then you can either keep hands to hips if that feels right for your shoulders, or bring your arms out wide. And just come back, notice where that steady rhythm of your breath is. And get strong through your legs, so squeeze your heels in towards center. You might feel inner legs engaged there. Really press down from your hips into your feet so your foundation feels steady. And then inhale, straighten your front leg. Exhale, reach forward and come down for triangle. You can bring your hand to your shin, to a block, to your mat if that feels right. We'll move a little bit with breath to start with. So press down into your feet. Inhale, come back up. Exhale, bend your front knee. And straighten, inhale. Reach forward, come down, exhale, top arm up. Good. Let's take one more like that. Come all the way up, inhale. Bend your knee, exhale. Straighten, inhale. And then reach forward, come down, exhale. And give your bottom hand enough support that it feels like your chest can stay open, right? That you're not all the way caved down. And that might be the height of a block or even up on your shin or your thigh. It's some great options for support. Stay strong through your legs and roll your chest open. Standing poses like this are good for the pelvis because it takes the hips in different rotations. So great for creating that range of motion here. Okay, and then press down into your feet. Inhale, come all the way up. Turn your toes again to the long end of your mat. Reach both arms up. And then exhale, fold forward, wide-legged forward fold. Feel free to bend your knees here if it feels like hamstrings, low back are talking to you. Just work your legs towards straight if that feels like there's room for it there. Just let your upper body hang, get heavy. You can even take a little movement with head and neck and shoulders, shake it yes and no. And come to center, press down from your hips to your feet. So it feels like you're rooting that strength all the way through your leg bones. And then lengthen forward, lift halfway. Bring your hands to your hips, stand all the way up. Great. Second side, turn your right toes to the back of your mat. And then slide your left heel back an inch or two. And if you had a block and you're using that, I'm going to take mine to the back here. Good. Hands to hips or arms out wide. Bend your front knee and just check and see where your knee is in relation to your ankle. Sometimes even backing out a little bit can be really nice for support. And reach out through your arms if they're extended. And then just turn to look over your right hand while you keep drawing your left shoulder and left ribs back. Good. Then that little bit of movement with breath. Inhale, straighten your front leg. Exhale, reach forward, come down to triangle. Shin, thigh, block for support. And use your breath. Inhale, come back up. Exhale, bend your front knee. And straighten, inhale. And just give yourself a reach. So you're getting some length in your side body. And you exhale, come down, triangle. Maybe one more, come on up, inhale. Bend your knee, exhale. Straighten, inhale. And then reach forward, come down, triangle pose. So again, shin, block. If your hand comfortably reaches the mat, some of us have a lot of range of motion in different poses. Great. All right, bring it there. And see if you can keep some space in your upper body and your chest there as well. And squeeze your heels towards one another. Just feel that engagement in your legs. And then press from your hips down into your feet. And then you might have really different sensation, range of motion again, side to side. As long as it's not painful, right? It's just something we notice and feel. I invite you to just breathe with it. You keep your attention there and stay with that steady range of motion of breath. Next, inhale, come all the way up. Good. And then you're going to circle your hands all the way back down to the front of your mat. Step your left foot back to meet your right in downward facing dog. Take a full breath in. And then exhale, bring your knees down to your mat, tabletop. So we're going to move through that cat-cow, but just a little different variation. So go ahead and press the tops of your feet down as long as that feels accessible, like the right choice in your body. You can keep them tucked under if it doesn't feel right. We're going to move back to some child's variation. And then take your feet your knees just a little bit wider. Not way wide, but maybe just wider than hip width apart, if that makes sense in your body. Okay, and then with breath, inhale, arch your back, look forward. And then exhale, round your back, but this time bring your hips all the way back towards your heels, child's pose. Okay, and we'll do that with breath. So inhale, come forward, arch your back, look forward. And then exhale, round, draw your hips back towards your heels, stretch out through your arms. Good. Move your breath, your range of motion. Right. One of the things that can be nice about keeping that rhythm with our breath is it just really helps keep our mind anchored to it. We notice that the breath is still full and steady. And we feel into those different sensations, places in the body that are talking to us today. Again, we just meet it with breath. We're not ignoring it, we're not bypassing it, we're just acknowledging it. And take just a couple more. And then the next time you come all the way back to child's pose, stay. If you want a little support behind your knees, a pillow snuggled behind your knees can be really nice. And if that deeper bend in the knees just is not feeling great in your body today, because that is the case for some of us, you can do the same thing. Just walk your hands forward a little bit, but keep your hips high. Okay, so lots of different variations. And just let your eyes close. Notice where your breath is out here. And just notice where there's sensation in your body. One of the great things we can do for ourselves in our practice is to notice it without our judgment around it. And we have a lot often, especially when things are related to our treatment or to surgeries, that it can bring up reactions within our body and our mind. And so just allowing ourselves that space to just simply breathe with it. Notice what comes up and come back to breath. And that in itself is a really big practice. And come forward again to tabletop. And you're just going to shift your hips off to the side. Come all the way down onto your back. And once you get there, bring your knees into your chest. And take your knees out a little bit wider so they're pointing more out towards your shoulders than in towards your chest. And then a couple different options here. One, to stay right here with your hands on the front of your shins, your knees, and take a little rock side to side. Always feels quite soothing. If it feels like you have a little bit more to go here, like a little bit more room, you can try happy baby. So reach down, take a hold of the outer edges of your feet. And so arm across your shin to the outer edges of the feet. And then flex your feet. Drop your knees down towards your mat as you press your feet into your hands. So there's a little bit of a resistance there. If you're like, that's great, Amy, my hips don't do that today. We stay here. And oftentimes the shape of the pose matters way less than the sensation that comes up. Sometimes it's not even the tightness in our muscles or things that we're working with that limit that. It's the structure of our skeleton, right? The angle of the bones and the hips, and a lot of different factors that are just unique to your body. Wherever you're at, wherever feels effective, that's your place. And then just take a couple more breaths there. And then from here, squeeze your knees straight in towards center. Bring your forehead up to your knees, curl it in, big squeeze in. And then as you exhale, release, we'll come into Shavasana, into final resting pose. So if you want any layers or support, you can grab those. You have a lot of different options here, right? Sometimes our traditional Shavasana is just laying legs out, arms straight. You're welcome to go there. A pillow or support under your knees can be nice for your low back. Or you can come back to that place that we started with knees bent, feet wide, and knees together. Hands by your sides or hands to your belly. And you close your eyes again, just let your body settle down. Release any effort. And then even release any effort with your breath. Just let it go where it wants to. And if there's still some sensation hanging on here, just notice that. Notice it and then come back to where your breath is. See if you can let both just breath and body settle here these last few moments in rest. If your mind starts to wander at all, it happens. Bring attention back to breath. And I'll bring us out when it's ready, when we're ready, when it's time. If you have longer to stay and you want to just stay and rest, please do. If you're ready to come out, take some fuller breaths. And then with your next inhale, reach your arms up overhead, take a full stretch. Draw your knees towards your chest, roll to your side. And press yourself all the way back up to sitting. When you get there, bring your hands together at your heart. And sit tall, lift your heart to your hands, bow your head to your heart. Thank you so much for taking the time to share practice today. Namaste.